I'm going to call this special call meeting for August the 20th, 6 p.m. to order. I'll need a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll second.
All those in favor? That's unanimous. And now we'll have a presentation of the 2024 millage rate. Jennifer is going to give us a presentation on where we stand on that.
Good evening. We'll start off by just looking at the property tax process. You can see that it starts with the tax assessor's office, which is a county function. They assess the property, they notify the taxpayers of the value changes, they review all the appeals, and they ensure that the appeal process proceeds properly. Then, once all of that is done,
I'm sorry. Jennifer, I'm sorry.
You're fine.
We might, Mayor Pro Tem Carter, we might want to make an announcement to explain that, because I think a lot of folks may be here for the planning and zoning meeting, but we might want to make an announcement just to explain that meeting is not till 7 and that we're having this millage rate hearing, just so that way folks know what's going on.
I think you just made that announcement.
Okay, fair enough.
Anybody out there that's here for the planning and zoning, you might want to take a break and come back at 7, but that's up to you. You have it, Jennifer.
Okay.
Sorry, Jennifer.
That's fine. That's okay. The next step is with the municipalities, both the city, the county, and the school board establish an annual budget and also levy a millage rate to fund the budget. After that, it goes to the tax commissioner, which is again a county function, and they bill, collect, and distribute the tax proceeds. What's included in the digest? It includes your real property, your personal property, motor vehicles, mobile homes, timber, and heavy-duty equipment. All of that is your gross digest. You minus out any exemptions to get to your net digest. As far as Villa Rica, our gross digest for 2024 is $1.3 billion, with 52.45 being residential, 25.99 industrial, 19.84 commercial, and the other 1.72 is made up of smaller categories like utilities, motor vehicles, agriculture, conservation, mobile homes, timber, and heavy-duty equipment. This is a comparison of our digest from 24 versus 23, with 24 being in the red and 23 being in the blue bars. We had an increase in commercial by 10.89%, a decrease in industrial by 2.44%, an increase in residential from $608 million to $690 million, which is a 13.43% increase. The other category had a nominal decrease of 1.89, so our gross digest increased by 8.08%. Our exemptions decreased by 51.07%, and we'll go in detail about what that is. Went from $195 million to $95 million, making our net digest be an overall increase of 19.42%. We went from $1 billion, a little over $1 billion net digest to $1.2 billion. As you know, Villa Rica is split between two different counties, Douglas and Carroll, and this is just a breakout of taking our digest by category and what percentage is in Douglas County versus what percentage is in Carroll County. Your commercial, 23% is in Douglas, 77% is in Carroll. Your industrial, 40% is in Douglas, 60% is in Carroll. Residential is about a 50-50 split. Your other category, 21% is in Douglas and 79% is in Carroll. So when you take your gross digest, subtract out your exemptions, you come up with your net digest of $1.2 billion. 44% is in Douglas and 56% is in Carroll. There are two types of growth in the digest. You have your reassessment inflationary growth, which is exactly what it is the reassessment of current property on the digest. And a good example, or an easy example, is say last year your fair market value was $200,000, and then this year you got a reassessment notice for $210,000. That $10,000 is considered reassessment or inflationary growth. The next type of growth is your new growth or other changes to the digest, and that is due to new or improved property. An example would be new houses, new commercial buildings, or improved property like a new swimming pool, a new storage building. So the reassessment and inflationary growth plus the new growth and other changes give you your total digest growth from your prior year to get to your new year. As far as our digest growth and how what our experience was in each of those categories, just a reminder, our 2023 value of a meal was just over $1 million, meaning for every meal that was levied, we would receive $1 million in tax revenue. In 2024, the value of a meal is now $1.2 million. And looking at the inflationary growth and new growth, you can see in the third column over the blue says inflationary growth was 4.79%, and for Villa Rica, that means that generates about $285,000 in revenue. The new growth, which is in yellow, is 14.63%, and the revenue generated from that is $870,000. So looking at the digest growth by county, again, taking our digest and looking at the growth and dividing it out by reassessment growth and new growth, as well as how much was for each county, Douglas and Carroll, you can see for reassessment and inflationary growth, Douglas County side of our digest experienced a 7.02% increase, with Carroll County 3.43% increase. Those two added together averaged out to be 4.79% in reassessment inflationary growth for our digest. As far as the new growth or other changes to the digest, on the Douglas County side, it was 30.06, which is not very common at all, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. Carroll County was 5.16, so our overall growth was 14.63%. So you can see total Villa Rica reassessment growth and new growth was 19.42%. So let's talk about this 30.06%. That is a very large number that is not it's not common. And when I reached out to the tax commissioner's office to make sure, one, that it was correct, and two, if it was correct, what caused it. It ended up being that Southwire did not file a Freeport exemption in 2024. This impacted the tax digest and resulted for just Villa Rica over $500,000 in revenue. They have not filed the Freeport exemption. The deadline to file that exemption has passed. However, due to the appeal process, we did not, and we don't recommend that we include this in our 2025 revenue projections, which we have not. The budget that was presented to you this morning did not reflect that revenue in the budget. I have reached out to the tax commissioner's office and asked them to please keep us updated on if they try to appeal, and if that gets adjusted off the digest, then it doesn't impact us because we didn't budget for it anyway. However, if they do end up having to pay and we receive the $500,000 in revenue, even though we didn't budget for it, we will receive it and it will just go into our fund balance. Our reassessment and inflationary growth, state law requires the calculation of a rollback millage rate to offset any inflationary increases to the digest. So we have to come up with a millage rate equivalent, which is taking the inflationary growth or the reassessment growth, and you divide that by your net digest. When you get that number, you multiply that times your prior year millage, which for us, which is 5.822, to equal the millage rate rollback, which is 0.234. So you take last year's millage rate of 5.822, you roll back 0.234 to come back to your 2024 rollback millage rate of 5.588. After discussing with finance staff, the city manager and deputy city manager, staff recommendation is that we maintain the same millage as 2023, which is the 5.822 versus the 5.588 rollback mill. For Villa Rica, again, this would be $285,000 in additional revenue. And the reason why that we're making this recommendation is based on two factors. Usually it's because in the general fund, we always have more needs than we have funding for. But in this particular case, the other bigger item is the tax allocation district. We have a debt repayment that was based on a 6.25 millage rate. We collected about $44,000 last year, and I think it's going to be around $150,000 this year. And starting in January of 2026, we're going to have a debt service payment of just under $2 million. And based upon the development that we have going on, the timing of the development, as well as when it's going to go on the digest, we're not quite certain if we're going to have the funding to make that debt service payment from property tax revenue. So we need to at least maintain our millage rate so that that just brings in the additional revenue and would help offset some, not all, of the shortage that we're going to have come fiscal year 2026. The advertisements have already been placed in the paper based upon the legal requirements by the state. The one on the left is the notice of property tax increase that has to be written just like they have shown us as in the example. We have to place it in the paper, not in the legal section, and it has to be 30 inches square. The last paragraph you'll see also is required language is talking about the proposed tax increase for a home with a fair market value of $312,500 is approximately $29.25 increase in taxes for the entire year for a homestead. For a non-homestead property, to maintain the millage rate at its current rate for a non-homestead would be $31.59 for the entire year. If you'll go back just one, I'm sorry. Thank you. The ad on the right is also an additional ad that we published in the paper that explained to the taxpayers that, one, we're holding 3 public hearings due to the taxes on reassessed properties, but we're not increasing the millage rate. The millage rate is equal to last year's millage rate, and we're just making sure that the citizens know that it's the reassessments on the property versus the millage rate that is actually being increased. This is another ad that is required to go in the paper. It's the current 2024 tax digest and 5-year history of levy. It's from 2019 to 2023 is the history, and you can see each of the categories and how each category performed year after year, with the last column being the most current, 2024. You can see the very last row, the 19.42%. That is not the amount of the tax increase for not rolling back. That 19.42% is the amount of tax revenue, additional tax revenue that we would receive compared to the prior year. But that also includes that $500,000 that we're not quite sure if we're going to actually receive or not from the Southwire Freeport exemption. A important reminder is last year, if you remember, the homestead tax relief grant was given to all homestead taxpayers. It was called the HTRG grant. That was a one-time property tax relief grant last year. We were hoping that it would be extended to this year. However, it was not. And what that HTRG was homestead taxpayers would receive a credit, and you can see in each of those categories, this is an example of a bill for a property that received the HTRG. They received a credit, so this particular bill had a credit of $530.88. And then the state turned around and paid each of the entities, the county, the school board, and the city, the total amount of all the homestead credits that were given. Instead of it coming from the taxpayers, it came from the state and was reimbursed to the city from the state. Where did the property taxes go? Of course, everybody, either through an escrow or when they go and pay their taxes, they pay the tax commissioner of the respective county, Carroll or Douglas. But both counties, you can see, and this is pretty much across the board, at least in the state of Georgia, is the majority of your tax dollars go to the Board of Education, your school system. You can see in Carroll County it's 58%, and in Douglas County it's 52%. Usually your next highest is your county government. 22% in Carroll County goes to Carroll County Board of Commissioners. 33% goes to Douglas County Board of Commissioners on the Douglas County side. So the smallest percentage of the taxes actually go to the city. 20% that live in the Carroll County go to the city of Villa Rica, and 15% that live in Douglas County go to the city of Villa Rica. The millage rate schedule, due to the state requirements, because we're proposing not to roll back the millage rate, 3 public hearings are required. We had one this morning at 10 a.m. This is the second one, and then next Tuesday we will have the third and final one at 6 p.m. And following that public hearing is when we would ask y'all to adopt a millage rate on August the 27th. Any questions?
I'll explain why I was late. It was worse than the dog eating your homework. But let me just tell you just briefly, only because it's actually kind of funny. I kind of got stuck in an elevator. We left here, our work session here, and went to Verita. And, well, I wasn't stuck a long time in the airport, but I couldn't get out. That's my mother calling to check on me. We finished the joint meeting with Carol tomorrow and the Chamber of Commerce. And apparently you cannot get out the elevator if you don't have a special card. And I was on a different floor, and I couldn't get to the floor to get out. So they had to go get a staff member and get me out of Verita, which is right next to our library. As far as questions on this, at least for the audience, so that they're clear that this millage rate, no decision has been made up here where it's going to be set. This is what is being proposed, and that these things are available online, all these PowerPoints, and I find them extremely helpful, not only for myself, but to share with others. So any questions from the council? Because we did this already for actually about 4 hours, wasn't it? Then I went to another 3-hour meeting. So we already met and went over a lot of this earlier, so I'll just go ahead and, if there's no other questions up here, just move into public comment.
How about the public hearing? Someone want to speak for or against it?
Did you do that?
No.
Yeah. Okay, so there was no here. Okay, so it says public comment here. This should say, oh, I'm sorry, I see number 1, public hearing. All right, so this is our public hearing, which is basically your public comment. So we'll open that up. Name and address for the record. It can, primarily this is for the millage rate, hearing for the millage rate. Step up to the microphone, name and address for the record, and you have,
Keenan.
3 minutes for this hearing, just like we do on public comment? Okay, I will.
William Keenan, 416 Charleston Place, Villa Rica. I just have a question with the millage rate and the assessment. Is that done by the same people?
No, and usually we won't answer back and forth, but I'm just going to answer you, no.
Okay.
The assessment is done by the assessor's office of Carroll County, and on the Douglas County side, it would be Douglas County. They assess the property. If you need to, I'm breaking protocol here, but I feel like this needs to be answered. And if we have do we have that screen? Okay, all right. Because I don't want to take your time. Go.
No, that was my question, because I'm thinking I'd rather have the millage go up and my assessment stay down. Because this isn't making any sense to me. It seems like you're saying, let's
Stay
keep
around.
the thing up, and then they leave the millage down, but you're raising the house prices to a ridiculous amount of number that I can't even get. I tried to sell for that. Nobody came close. So that was my
When you sit
question.
down, stay here. We'll talk afterwards.
All right, thank you.
Because I spent a lot of time learning the way all this tax works on the county and the assessments. If there's any other questions, I'll try to direct people to staff or stay after, and if not staff, one of us will talk to any of y'all about it. Okay, yes, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. My comment is just a little off from the millage rate, though we are affected if it goes up or go down as well. We're concerned about the meeting that was unauthorized yesterday at the city hall, where council members, Miss Deanna was present, that you called and set up. Leslie is causing division in our community. You're running this city like you own it. I respect your position. There's no problem with you personally. I want to make that clear. But in the absence of Mr. Reese, and we've been trying to navigate through, trying to help the city stay away from getting a huge lawsuit. But for you to call people in our community to try to sway them one way, to try to get around so that you can elude the lawsuit and be dismissive of us that have worked day in and day out since we've come up under this crisis is unfair to us. And then to have city council people that ask that the meeting not go forward and you didn't stop it, that's negligence. That's negligence. I have to speak on Miss Deanna's behalf. I wasn't there, but the citizens came back and made us aware. Her position was also violated in the absence of our city manager. We have a deputy city manager. Where is the respect for the people that work with y'all on a daily basis? And why is our community just being thrown up under the bus? It has to stop somewhere. We know that you are pushing for this road because you've been for it. And I want, you want to make it change the narrative as if we're the problem, but we're not the problem, and we're not. I just want to let the people know that if y'all want to know more information about what's going on, I have contracts with me that the city has went into, and it can give you a little more, it can explain more to you if you have concerns about why we're being so vocal about what's going on. Maybe if you see what we have, you'll understand why we're having to come and speak out on a constant basis, cannot miss a meeting, because we don't know what's going to happen next. So at each meeting, we'll be here, we will speak, we until we get results. Thank you.
Ms. Pam, please stay afterwards. Let's talk afterwards. Anyone else want to speak during the public hearing? All right, if there's no further questions or comments from council, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes, unanimous.
Next time.
Yes, sir.
I gotta go Sam's.
There you go, Sam's Club. Oh, okay. I was gonna say get me something, but no, it's okay. You're busy. You gotta go. See you, Danny.